teaching on.
Welcome everyone to our Monday evening teaching. We have a special treat tonight. The treat is my wife. I get her every night. Y'all get to have her tonight. So
yeah. Y'all get me when he's tired. when he's too tired, he's like, honey, can you teach tonight? Sure. So I don't prepare as much as him. I'm always living in Jesus. So I do it a little different, but God is good. I learned that he uses us all differently, doesn't he? And that's the beautiful part of life. When we all think we got to be like each other, then we're comparing ourselves and we're not being who he really wants us to be. And that's just not right. He made us all very different to be able to complement one another, not compare ourselves or be in competition. That's the way I see it anyway. So tonight I was thinking about the houses of peace. And in that, thinking about that, I was thinking, what would keep us from being a house of peace? That's what I was thinking about. What would keep a human being from really being a house of peace? If they're a Christian, if they love God and they love Jesus. And the first thing that I heard was, if we don't love our neighbors. That's what would keep us from being a house of peace. Mm-hmm. That we may say, well, I'll pray for everybody but him, or I'll pray for everybody but her, or that house, right? Because it's not always easy to love thy neighbor. I think if it was easy, God wouldn't have said to do it. It's like your children. You don't have to tell your children at some point in their life to brush their teeth. You've trained them to brush their teeth. They brush their teeth. Right. So you don't say every day when they're 25 years old, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. So it's like, why would God say this is one of the most important commandments, is to love God, love your neighbor as yourself. So we know that we're believing that we're loving ourselves, right? However, sometimes there's things in our own selves we can't forgive ourselves for. We may not always be aware of it, like it's not like a blazing thing because we've done a lot of work on ourselves. But maybe there's a neighbor that we're having a hard time forgiving because they're whatever, very difficult to love, as I would say. They're trying, they push the boundaries, they don't obey by the rules or the laws or whatever it is. So I was thinking, when we're thinking about love thy neighbor as myself, and of course, loving God, but in this campaign, in this movement that God has given us to do, is to be a house of peace, which means I'm going to pray for my house, everybody in it, and everybody on my neighbor, in my neighborhood, on my block. We have had people say they're taking their whole street. That's fine. But, we're just asking for a block right now. So if you're taking a block and, Miss Elizabeth is very difficult. And, I hate to use this Karen thing, but I know you've probably all seen that on Facebook, a Karen, they call it. But I remember somebody had a hat that says, make America great again, make Karen great again, because poor people named Karen, I feel bad for them. But y'all know what I'm talking about. Just a difficult person that they're wounded in their own way and happen to sometimes wound their neighbors and others. So when I was thinking about this, I was like, Lord, I really need to take inventory of the neighbors that are difficult to love. Mm. For myself, between me and God, which ones, throw their trash cans around. For me, it's the ones that don't pick up their trash cans properly in my alley. It aggravates me because I don't like rodents. And I think that I'm going to have rodents if they don't like it. And that scares me. So it's usually something that scares me that makes me be judgmental. Which I don't like being judgmental. So I've got to really look at it. So in this, it's like, which neighbors are pushing my buttons? And those are the neighbors that need to be first on my list for me to pray for me to ask God to give to them everything that I want. And what is it that I want? I need to know myself, right? I want to have harmony in my house. I want to have unity in my house. I want to have prosperity in my house. I want to have joy in my house. I want to have fun in my house. I want to have lots of love in my house. So that's what I pray for them to have. I want safety around my house. I want safety down my street. So I pray for that for them, but they have to go first because God did say, love thy neighbor. And he also said to love their enemies, which that would be a category of an enemy of somebody that's difficult to love. I may not combat with them externally. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't, but I may combat with them internally. So they go first on my list. Probably myself goes first and they go second, in the sense that I can only love them as well as I love myself. So I need to be nice to myself. I need to talk nice to myself. And if there's anything that's happening that I haven't forgiven myself for, I need to put that there. I need to ask God to help me forgive myself for anything that's in my way of loving myself, because I can only love you as much as I love me. So from there, I put them on the list, and then I put the easy ones to love, and then I put the ones I don't know to love. You know, it could be the brick townhouse down the way. It could be the house down the way that has 4 or 5 apartments. You can say the address, 7272, whatever it is, if you don't know their name. The house with the blue car. God knows who you're talking about. You need to know who you're talking about. You may not know everyone that lives in that home, but that you're covering that home and you're asking God to go there. You're asking the Holy Spirit to go there. You're asking the Spirit of God to go there. You're asking Jesus to go there. So in that process, by labeling that home, whatever makes sense to you in your mind, by their address or the house or the car, then all of a sudden, we're sending the love that we want and we need to them. So when I become a house of peace, of course, I want to be the house that when I go outside, as it happens in my little courtyard neighborhood, someone will say, my dad's sick, or my dad's in the hospital, or my worker's child has leukemia, or, I've been at the hospital and we have a lot of flu going on and there's a lot of children, whatever it is. We have a doctor that lives here, we have, different people that they come to me now and they ask for prayer. I mean, it's like, this is fantastic, right? I pray for them anyway, but now I get specific things that they need prayer for. But then there's other people on my street that don't know me. So it's my job to pray for them. And if God opens that up with the orange ribbon, or opens it up where someone else tells them that this is, that we're prayer people, then fantastic. And I think with the billboards and the press releases, then they'll know that we are homes that they can feel safe with when they're under stress, to come to us and say, will you pray for me? My son's sick, this is happening in my family, or this is happening with somebody that I love. Because what they bring to us is when they're hopeless. So I was thinking about house of peace everywhere means hope. HOPE, house of peace everywhere. So we become a hope haven. Mm. So if I am praying to God for them, sooner or later, I'm going to be their hope haven to come to when they're in need. And I don't know if you've ever tried this or not, but this is something that if you're learning to be a counselor, or you're in certain type of, the mentality of social work or whatever, one of the exercises anyway that they had me do was, you go to the grocery store, not someone and you say one or two things to somebody. It can be in line, or it can be, when you're picking the meat out or whatever, and you say something a little personal, they will almost tell you their whole life because they don't know you and they need an ear. We can become that ear because we've said to the Spirit of God, we said to Jesus that we are opening our hearts and our ears to our community. But right now, we're just opening it to our block. We're opening up. And the hardest people to love are the people that are closest to us, because we don't want to be rejected. We don't want to be hurt anymore. We all have a bucket, internal bucket. And what I do know about an internal bucket, like, this is where I'm good. Okay. There's a lot of things I ain't good at, but this one I'm good at. We have an internal bucket. And in that internal bucket, we store our wounds. And we have a lifetime to grieve these things. But sometimes that bucket gets overfull. And it's overflowing. And it's not like the overflowing of God, where I'm overflowing with joy and peace, okay, and righteousness. I'm overflowing with pain. I'm overflowing with losses. And if you ever lost someone that you really, really love, you know what I'm talking about. You ever gone through a divorce? I don't care if you need the divorce. You know what I'm talking about. That you don't have time in a short period of time, whatever that is, that somebody says, okay, you have 4 days to grieve your husband, or you have 7 days to grieve your child, or you have no time, even though you're getting a divorce, to stop your life. Okay. So you have this internal bucket that you put all this stuff in, and life gets overwhelming and it starts to come out, and you try to stop it because it's not safe emotionally. And what the House of Peace is, it becomes a safe haven for somebody to maybe share a little bit of their bucket on a bad day. Mm. And that's what we're going to do for our city. And I'm believing anyway, that it's going to happen all over America and maybe all over the world. Like, it's time for us to do what we do for one another inside of the four walls. If you've ever been to a great four walls place, if it's a 12-step meeting, if it's a church, if it's a ministry, or if it's a home, a cell group, I think that's what they used to call them, or a home, like what Mama Kelly has. She has a home ministry in her home where she invites people in. If you've ever been any place that has four walls, that it's emotionally safe, it's the most wonderful thing in the world. But as we know, not everybody has this. Not everybody has that luxury. Maybe they were hurt in a church. Maybe they were hurt in a ministry. Maybe they were hurt in their home. Maybe they're hurt in their marriage. They don't have a safe place to go. So what we're saying is we're going to be that safe place. But first thing is we have to do it internally, and we have to do it for the enemies on our street to us, the people that are hard to forgive, the people that are hard to love. Because what that happens is all of a sudden it opens us up that God says, I can use you. My people are hurting, and I can use you to help me love them. I'm not saying Jesus can't come down and talk to another person, because I know the people on this call right now know of somebody that Jesus has talked to them straight on, face to face. Okay. Not everybody has had that experience. Okay. I'm not saying Jesus can't do it himself. That's none of our business if Jesus chooses to do it himself. But what I do know is that Jesus will use a man, woman. We all get it. He will use a human being to love another human being. He will use an animal. We know that. If we don't speak up, he will use an animal. But his first choice is us, because he made us. And I love the story about him and Eve, because he gave Eve to Adam because he didn't want him to be lonely. It's like one of the worst feelings of all. I mean, to lose somebody is awful, and to be lonely is awful. So in loneliness, we become that house of peace, that we start to pray for these people. And when God knows that our heart is true and real, he will send them. He will send them. And one of the things is like, I'm a life coach, counselor, therapist, whatever you want to call me. I deal with people's hurts. I deal with their sins. I deal with their pain. I deal with the things they don't like about themselves. I deal with the things they don't like about other people because they want to love other people and the things that are uncomfortable. But when I deal with that, I have to be clean to be able to hear them. I can't be thinking about myself. I can't be thinking about Dean. I can't be thinking about my marriage. I can't be thinking about my child. I can't be thinking about the next thing I'm supposed to be doing. I have to be right in the moment with that human being. And, when I am with my people that God sends to me, they never want to leave. They want to stay there forever because it's safe, because it's peaceful, because it is shalom. Shalom is in the room. Jesus is in the room, if they know it or not. I know it because I've invited him in. I've invited him inside of me, upon me, and with me. And when we do that in our homes, in ourselves and in our homes, and then in our neighborhood, they're going to come. I mean, this thing is going to go big. I can tell. Not because it's Dean and I, not because it's Voice of the Kingdom. It's because we've listened to God as a corporate group that really love ourselves and loves one another. And we really love our city. And we've been very faithful in other ministries and then in this ministry. This is a movement. It's not really a ministry. It's a movement that you can be in any ministry or no ministry, in any church or no church, and do this. And our goal is, if you are in a ministry and you are in a church, we want you to stay loyal to where you are. You can be a house of peace no matter where you are, because God said to love thy neighbor. And if there's anything that we need right now in this violence, is to show the world that we can love one another. No matter what color we are, no matter what society we come from, what class we came from, what school we went to, where we were educated from, doesn't matter. If we've never was educated, that has nothing to do with it. It's just to love one another. But the problem with that is that we can't expect them to love us back. It's kind of like it is like the child relationship is what we're asking for in this situation. And I think this is what God is asking of us. When you have a child, you give, you give, you give, you give, you give, you give, and you give more. And when they go to sleep, you're like, oh, and their sweet little faces. And the next day you get up and give more. And they'll give you kisses and they'll look at you with love. But their job is not to give back. It's our job to give to them. A house of peace that's what it is. I don't know if they're going to be praying for me. I don't know if they're going to even remember my name. I don't know if they'll even give me a blink or a wave, but that's not what God asked of me. God asked me to pray for them. God asked me to open my heart for them. God asked me to forgive them. It's what did God ask me to do, not what God asked them to do. One of the things in a marriage that a lot of people don't understand is that it's not what I can get in a relationship. It's what I can give. Like if you're working with me and we're talking about all this, it's like, what can you give? That's what you better know. Because if you can't communicate what you can give, your partner's going to have some expectations that you're going to fall short of over and over and over and over. But if you know what you can't give and you know what you can give, then we're starting from a good place. Doesn't mean I can't grow as a person and go where I can give it, but I need to know where I start and what I can and can't do. then we're starting on a good solid base. So in this process, in this movement, we're talking about what I can do, what I can give. That I don't need to talk to them about Jesus. I need to pray to Jesus for them. I need to ask God to bless them. And, a lot of people get really confused with this because they'll say, well, I can't bless that family because they're doing drugs, or that family's living in sin, or that family's gay, or that family's whatever. Okay. They got 25 kids and they all have different daddies. I don't care. Ain't none of our business. God said for us to pray for them. And we're asking God to go be with them and to meet their needs, whatever they need. It's none of my business. It's not my business to know anything unless they choose to tell me. And God's not sending them to me until I have a clean heart to pray for them. So as I continue to open my own heart up and forgive myself and others, as that happens, it's going to take my block, because I'm going to be cleaner and cleaner and cleaner to pray for them. And I'm going to have only his heart. We want the Father's heart for them. We don't want our heart. We want the Father's heart for them. So if I say, God, give me your heart for my neighbors. You give me your heart for that person. And the person that is hard to forgive, God, you put the forgiveness in my heart. You help me forgive. There's nothing impossible with him. So if I ask him to help me, he will. Because we know we have not, because we ask not. So that means ask. Ask what I don't know how to do. Ask what, if I'm having a hard time forgiving, ask for him to help me forgive. Then that puts me in a position that I'm being humble to my Lord. Because I would rather ask than be slapped down by the Lord, because as a Christian, we're supposed to know a few things, If Ed always says that, why are we expecting things from people that aren't Christian? I mean, that's insane. You don't expect a person with no legs to walk. You don't do that. You remove your expectation. The expectation is on us. And I always love what David Hogan said was when God called him back to be a Christian, and he was like, no, I ain't never been a real Christian, David, he's, argh. And God said, then be the Christian you've never seen. You be it. You walk what you believe a Christian is. It's like, wow. What a invitation from the Lord, huh?
Yes.
To be what I've never seen, to love the way I've never seen. And if I have no expectations, then I'm not going to get hurt. How can I get hurt? I can't, because I have no expectations of that you're going to love me back. So if you love me back, it's like getting a surprise present. It's like, whoa, that was nice. Doesn't mean I'm going to get another one, but it sure was nice when it was one that I got. So all of a sudden, loving thy neighbor becomes really simple. And all of a sudden, I'm loving God more and more because I'm loving myself more, I'm loving my neighbor more, and I'm loving God more. And then my relationship with God is stronger, my relationship with my neighbors is stronger, and my relationship with myself is stronger. That's a win-win. I'm always looking for a win-win in myself. How to get a win-win, not a lose-win, not a lose-lose, but a win-win. So, my challenge is join the movement. Join the movement of true love for yourself, for your neighbors, for God. And then our city wins. And if there's any city that deserves to win, it's ours. because we are a very loving city. We're a fun city. We care about one another. We don't have all the solutions, but God has the solutions. And the more we love, he's going to download them to us. And he's also going to open the ears of the people that need to hear it. Because that's the other side of that. He can download, but he also needs to soften their heart. I always think about Moses, when he was dealing with Pharaoh. It kept saying that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, which just really freaks me out. I'm like, why would he do that? He sent Moses over there. Moses is trying to set his people free. He's being obedient. But God kept hardening his heart. He kept hardening his heart. He kept hardening his heart. He kept hardening his heart. And then one day he softened it. And everybody was blessed that left with Moses. There were 5 million people. They were all blessed. They had no feeble among them. No one was sick. Everyone was healed. They were in shalom. Yes. And that's what we want for our city. So it's not up to us when God softens their heart. It's up to us to do our part, and he'll do it. But our heart's got to be soft too. So my challenge is go for it. I'm going for it. I have some neighbors that are not always easy to love. First one on my list. So, yeah. Is that enough? I have enough time? I did good?
You did great.
Okay, good.
Yes.
That's how I prepare.
Yes. Well, we're going to get into the processing. If you'd like to give this evening, you can do so. I don't have the graphic, but it's Venmo's Voice of the Kingdom and PayPal's Voice of the Kingdom New Orleans, or you can go to the website voiceofthekingdom.org and you can give to that. And we will steward that finances to help ministries such as the homeless ministry and to do the work that God's calling us to do to transform our city.
Yeah, we need billboards, we need signs, and we need bows. I mean, a lot of us will buy our own bows, but some people are like, oh, can you give me the official bow? I'm like, I'm going to pay.
We need to hire Rhonda to be the bow maker. Man.
I'm thinking,
she has the
you want to be the bow maker? I'm like, we need official bows. They're like, can I get the official bow? I'm like, oh, you don't want me to make it.
Yeah, so bless your giving.